Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of Blackbird's Brew. Happy Wednesday. It's time for Divination demonstration, and this is going to be our last spread with the Halloween deck, which was written by Karen Lee and illustrated by Kipling West. We're going to be using a spread that I found online called the Halloween spread, and if you would like to see what it looks like, you'll have to come to Blackbird's Brew and go to our Magical Tidbits channel, and that's where you'll have a visual representation of it. But it's 13 cards. It's a longer one. Definitely something that gets used for special occasions and not necessarily the day-to-day readings. But let's see what is in store for our querent this week. The first card is called the Skeleton, which represents the bare bone of the situation that the querent is currently in. For this, they pulled the Four of Imps. The Four of Imps, as you can see, obviously pertains to accomplishments and celebrations, joyfulness, possibly even romance, because if you'll notice that, set up with the poles and, the garland going everywhere, that is reminiscent to what you might see at weddings. So this could be something that is going on in the querent's life that's moving into a more permanent direction. Next, we have the Mummy, what covers the bare bones. And for this, interestingly, our querent pulled the Nine of Bats. And we know what this card is. It's not called the Nightmare card for nothing. But apparently, overlaying this sense of, mission accomplished or possibly a romance on the horizon or just enjoying life in general, you have this upset. It's not just the loneliness, because obviously the figure is quite alone. I don't think the bats are there to comfort her, but it's also about grief. It's about disappointment, sometimes in someone, possibly even being in danger. It's a little difficult to square this with the Four of Imps. I mean, you look at them side by side, and clearly there is very different energy going on here. Maybe this relates to a relationship that is in trouble, or maybe it means that what's going on with the Four of Imps and things being in a better place is not matching what's on the outside, because what's going on the outside and the external and perhaps the visible aspects of that person's life, perhaps it is not in accordance with what's going on within themselves. They might be undergoing a powerful personal transformation that hasn't necessarily reached the exterior just yet. And the fact this might be the ending of one relationship that's about to give way to another that has already begun to develop. So, lots of possibilities there. Now, the third card represents your costume. This is the mask that you wear, who you are in this situation. And our querent got the Knight of Pumpkins. Knights, of course, are messengers, and as with all court cards, this might represent a literal person in the querent's life. But the Knight of Pumpkins, you might think integrity, accepting responsibility, even if it's really boring stuff, but still recognizing there's a job to be done, and so they go off and do it. It's about having endurance and patience. It's about making steady progress towards accomplishing goals and using everything you have to reach them, and it's about dedication. Obviously, if this is coming in human form, it would be someone who has those characteristics. And I'm not sure if that would relate either to the Four of Imps or the Nine of Bats. Depending on the situation, it could really go either way. For example, if someone is craving a little bit more excitement, a little bit more connectivity, or to make more rapid progress, then the Knight of Pumpkins could be actually a disappointing figure in their life. Or if they feel that they've just been lost in chaos and everything's going in 12 different directions, this could relate to the Four of Imps being that possible romance of someone who's going to bring some stability to the situation that they couldn't provide for themselves. So I'm kind of on the fence about this. However, as a mask, this could be the outer shell that someone is presenting to the rest of the world. Because with my first thought, it might be, oh, well, this could be someone that the querent is kind of hiding behind and that the other person is the mask. But if this is a mask that the querent is wearing themselves, this means that they are giving the impression that it's under control. They've got it handled. They might be willing to take the hard seat, willing to do the dull, boring, mundane, day-to-day tasks. but that they do have goals and they are going to reach them. So this could be quite complicated. Everything about this reading is rapidly becoming complicated. Next, the ghost. This is something from the querent's past that is unresolved and impacts the situation. And ta-da! Our querent got the tower, or in this deck, the haunted house. The tower, of course, is about disaster and catastrophe, things that are going to fall apart, and there's absolutely nothing you can do. It is inevitable, but it ends well. Yes, you might have your rose-colored glasses ripped off your face, but it's going to end with you being able to see clearly, attaining a new level of enlightenment, being freed in some way, having a dramatic overthrow. So for this to still be going on for the querent, that means that they did have a major earthquake in their life at some point, and it did lead them to a situation to where they can see things perhaps as they are. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. A lot of good experiences can be taken from those tower moments in our lives, even though we don't necessarily see it in the moment. Now, next, the fifth card represents the devil, something that is bedeviling the querent, and we have the world. This is a sense of oneness with others or with being connected to the world around them. It's about gaining spiritual understanding, having a sense of completion, success, euphorias. It's about the ending of a cycle, the ending of a moment, the ending and destination that you have traveled to. For this to be bedeviling the querent means that this is something that has been eluding them. They don't feel connected, or perhaps they don't feel whole within themselves. They might be groping to transform themselves spiritually, or as they're steadily working on their goals, but they haven't completed them yet, that might be driving them absolutely insane. So, a lot going on there. Now, scroll down my notes. For the sixth card, we have the vampire, something that is feeding or is feeding off of the querent. And for this, they pulled the Emperor. The Emperor is obviously the Frankenstein monster, and he's, of course, chained up and very sad and having difficulties. He's holding an ankh, which is the Egyptian symbol for eternal life, but it's also a symbol of power, of being in authority and having control over something. The Frankenstein story, one of the lessons about it is about what happens when you don't take responsibilities for your actions. What if you don't face the consequences? Because of Dr. Frankenstein's mistakes, the poor creature was set on a terrible journey, something that was filled with pain and violence and the very worst that human nature has to offer. And so often, if we are evading the consequences for our actions and not taking responsibility, we are bringing out the worst of our own personal nature. I see this card as something that is feeding off of the querent. It may be something that is going on within themselves, but it could also be something that is being imposed upon them. That might go back to the tower and then being able to recognize when things have gone screwy and be able to see that clearly and to be able to push past, the excuses and the nonsense and all of this spin that people try to put on things and just go directly to the heart of the matter and say, no, that's not right. And I know that because of, the past experiences that I've had. It does seem like someone is not interested in hearing people's excuses or rationalizations. Now, moving on to the seventh card. This is the Jackolantern, something that is lighting the way of the querent. And our querent pulled the High Priestess. The High Priestess is all about balancing seen and unseen energies. This is about intuition, being able to interact with your subconscious. So a lot of dream work here. It's about mystery and hidden influences and the duality of existence. As this is lighting the querent's way, I think the querent is leaning very strongly into their spirituality, looking to perhaps people who are more experienced to themselves or looking to their gods for guidance, for direction, for some understanding that they haven't been able to quite figure out by themselves. Next, for the eighth card, we have the Black Cat, something that will cross the path of the querent for good or for ill, and it represents the kind of luck the querent generally has. They pulled the Seven of Bats, which is, plans that don't really work out, setbacks, dealing with bad luck, and having only partial success that doesn't justify the risk that they took. So, if this is going to be passing the querent, that means that they have yet another obstacle to overcome. But, as we overcome obstacles, good things can come from that. But if this represents the run of luck the querent generally has, they may need to start rethinking about how they approach things in general. Are they setting themselves up for success? Because if you consistently find that things are not working out for you, then it may not be the universe attacking you. It could just be your way of dealing with the universe and your way of pursuing your goals isn't actually effective. Yes, there is such a thing as a person being wrong and having to change how they deal with things. It's not fun. This could go into all kinds of shady territory with shadow work and having to delve into their brain about why they formed bad habits to begin with and then having to break those habits. What can be as bad as breaking an addiction of a more chemical variety. But it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be done. And if you are constantly not being able to enjoy success, it's time to try something else. Time to change your mind at the very least. Be more open. Maybe you've been too dismissive of other approaches that might actually lead to your success. So a lot to keep in mind. Now, the ninth card represents the witch, how the querent can use their own magic. And they have the Three of Imps. This is about successful endeavors, getting a payoff, especially in creative projects, being good at business matters, and it's also about the possibility of there being barriers between people. And you can see you have two of the imps hiding behind torch. Well, not really hiding, but they have torches in front of them. Another has some kind of leafy tree that they're behind of. These could be obstacles that's in the querent's path that they're going to have to use their, literally their own magic, or at the very least use their skills and their talents in such a way to overcome. And as far as barriers about people, if they are in a position in which they are in between relationships, shall we say, there is going to be barriers that have to be overcome as they put an end to one relationship and explore the possibility of a new one. So probably some territory that will involve a degree of high drama. Have fun with that. Next, the 10th card, the Bat. This represents a broader view or something that the querent cannot see, and they pulled the King of Pumpkins, another court card. If it is a literal person, this could represent as a man who is in his maturity, possibly someone who tends to be in charge of things and is very practical minded, because the pumpkins in this deck relate to the earth element. At any rate, it deals with experience, successful leadership, being reliable, steadfast, resourceful, and letting go of what is not appropriate for things that are appropriate. Interesting thing. I think this points less to a literal person in the querent's life and more to uh, an area of change that they have not yet really come to grips with. Something in their life is out of order, just flat out, and it's time to let go of that and move into something that is in order. This could mean a change of relationships. This could mean a change of professions. It could mean a change of their view of their own ethics and morality. They might need to be struggling with some of those more internal issues. But because it is the King of Pumpkins who's representing this, and that indicates that they can be successful. They might have wrestled with such things in the past. That could account for the experienced part of this card. And that could go back to the situation that we saw with the tower and that, having the scales fall from their eyes in that experience. I think that when the querent sees this, they're going to probably be hit with something that they can't figure out why they could not see before, because it'll. I just have a feeling that this card will give them that moment of aha, or I can see it now. Next, we have the 11th card, which represents Frankenstein and what the querent is creating. And the querent pulled the Star. Now, the Star, as you might see, we have a lovely gargoyle on there. And Gargoyle is actually channeling water in this card, and it's offering hope. Water is one of those elements that can literally wash things away, but it is also a very renewing element. It's a cathartic element. And going through that process can give someone greater optimism or have more understanding, be able to have some clarity, some insight, some perspective, being able to put things in their proper place, essentially. It's also about harmony between the subconscious and conscious. So if there is a conflict between what their subconscious is telling them and what their conscious mind is thinking, that is going to be resolved. And it's also about an outpouring of feeling. Maybe this person is needing some kind of emotional release, which, if this is going back to the idea of possibly being in between relationships, that would absolutely be a necessary thing. But all in all, very good news here. Now, the 12th card, the Werewolf, how the situation will change the querent, because we have identified some areas needed for change, and we have the 6 of Pumpkins. This is about rewards that have been earned. It's about having a period of time where you enjoy material prosperity. And it's also about kindness and generosity and things being on a two-way street. It's just an instinct on my part, but I do think that this will be bringing the querent into a kinder place, and being someone who gives as much as they take and having more of that communal interchange amongst the people in their lives. Now, the 13th card and the last, the candy bag. This is a mix of goodies and duds that the querent will take home when it's all done. So as they have gone through this process and they do what they need to do and realize what they need to realize, this is essentially going to be the upshot. And our querent pulled the Ace of Ghosts. This is about love, happiness to the superlative degree, having the ability to experience them, so they might be undergoing some emotional transformation here. Very powerful feelings, and also the idea of being productive, having greater beauty in one's life, experiencing pleasure. And I'm not talking just about, more tangible pleasures, but also, pleasures of the mind, pleasures of the eyes, pleasures of the heart, things that help make someone a whole and complete person. So ultimately, despite all the bumps in the road that we've been looking at through this reading, I think the querent is on track to have a very good outcome. That I think this is someone who's doing the work and dealing with things as best as they know how. I think there will be occasions when the querent is going to have to reevaluate, be more open-minded about not only what they're doing, but how they're doing that. But on the whole, I think this is a very good sign of things to come for them. So that is it for this week's divination demonstration. Next week it will be November, so we're going to be using a different deck, and we'll be doing different spreads that focus on different things. I hope you've enjoyed our October spreads, and if you haven't already joined us on Discord, there will be a link in the description box below. It will take you to Blackbird's Brew. That's where we all hang out. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the channel and like the video and leave a comment if you so desire. But I think that's it for now. Bye.